What's up? I want to make a very short video here covering two little things we talked about in class today. Where we left off was this two-player Pong with the shock waves. It makes a nice ripple when it bounces, just to indicate that you're doing what you should be doing. Bouncing is good. Here's a little reward with a pretty picture. But as you can see, there's one issue, which is sometimes it gets stuck inside the paddle and like ripples 5 times per second. And that's okay, it actually kind of looks cool, but the problem is when it does that, it's bouncing back and forth every frame, or maybe not if it's not quite catching it, but it's bouncing back and forth a lot, and half the time it ends up going off screen instead of going back toward the middle. So we want to fix that. And I also wanted to add one feature, which is a reset. If it goes off screen, I don't want to hit stop, hit run again. I want it to just keep flowing like the original Pong, where it appears back on and gets moving again. We don't need any fancy stuff, but just the beginning of that. So I thought, let's add a reset to our ball. The other objects don't care. The main loop doesn't need to know. The paddle doesn't need to know. But the ball will just move itself back. Okay, we don't even need to create another ball. It's just the same ball teleporting back to the middle. Okay, so I want to say if the ball is off screen, then move it back to the middle. Now, it never actually goes up or down because the bounce on the top and the bounce on the bottom are pretty rock solid. It never goes above the screen or below, but it does go left or right. So we need to check, is the x coordinate over here, or is the x coordinate over here? Meaning it's going to be something like self.x less than 0 or self.x greater than width. Capital width is the width of the screen, you know. However, I don't really like this. I think this is slightly hard to read. For me, ors are always the trickiest logically to put in your mind. So what I'm going to do instead is to have one chain inequality, which is like this, 0 less than x less than width, so that's in the screen, and just put a not. So if it's not in the screen, and that is exactly the same thing, the computer doesn't care, but the human reading it, I think, at least if the human reading it is me, will like that better. So then we want to teleport it to the middle or somewhere on screen. I was looking at a video of the original Pong, and from what I could tell, it looks like it appears in a random spot, moving in a random direction. But I'm just going to stick it in the middle for a real easy, simple, quick start, you know. So I'm going to go width over 2 with a double slash to make sure that it rounds to an integer, even though it shouldn't have to. My width is an even number, but you just want to get in the habit. And same thing, so it's going to appear in the middle. Am I going to mess with the direction? Nah, I'll just let it keep the direction it had. Am I going to add a little pause, 3, 2, 1, get ready? Nah, we'll do that later. Am I going to add, you know, hit a button to start the next round? Nah, I want to start with something super simple. This is just 2 lines. 1 line to give it a name, and then 1 line to make it happen. This is in the update, so the main loop was already calling the update. It doesn't have to know that the update has changed. It just knows that it's telling the ball to do its chores, and the ball will do what it wants to do. So let's hit this run. Let's let it bounce normally to make sure we didn't ruin that, and then let's let it fly off screen, and then it appears back. This is too fast. You're definitely going to miss it when it appears in the middle and you have less than a second to get to where it's going, like that. But who cares? You have infinite lives and it's going to appear again the next frame. So I like that because when I'm testing it, I want to test it again and again and again, and I don't want to have to hit stop, hit run, watch the Pygame messages appear, have a chance that it doesn't work, you know, all that good stuff. So that's pretty cool. When you do something like this, you don't add 10 features. I don't want to add a timer and a countdown and a random direction and a random spot and then test it. I want to add something super bare bones see how it goes, and then once I get used to this, I can improve it later. Now, let's go to the other idea I was talking about, which is that sometimes it gets stuck in the paddle. It goes a little too far and then bounces back and forth. And when I was talking about this in class, I had all these ideas of like, oh, maybe we could add a little timer where when it bounces once, it doesn't bounce again until it's free, maybe 10 frames or something. But then that might mess up if it's in the corner and has to do 2 bounces off 2 different things. Or I said, oh, maybe we can snap the position outside the paddle and like move it a little bit to get outside so that it's never bouncing internally. And those are probably fine and they'll probably work for other games. But for this one, I realized that it can be a lot simpler, which is just don't let it go the wrong way. Just say, hey, if you hit the left paddle, you need to be going right. No nonsense, no excuses. If you bounce off the left paddle, you need to be going right. So instead of this thing, where it has the negative Vx, meaning it's switching, well, we can just say, hey, buddy, you're going to be positive. If you hit the left paddle, you're going to the right, which means even if it's doing this twice in a row, even if it's still in there in the next frame, it doesn't switch direction anymore, and it's still going to be shooting off to the right. And then over here, we're going to say negative absolute value, meaning if you hit the right paddle, you're going to the left, no matter how much you want to change your mind in the next frame. This is immediately solving our problems without having to add new methods and new timers and new things to keep track. However, it still might leave a million shockwaves. If it gets stuck inside the paddle, it's going to do this thing. Let me see if I can make it happen. Yeah, that, where it leaves a bunch of shockwaves. However, it doesn't affect the game as much because it's still going in the right direction. It's not turning around 10 times in 10 frames. It's just taking a second to get outside the paddle if it went too far. So it kind of looks cool to have the extra shockwaves, and it kind of has no downside anymore. So what I would say is I'm going to keep it there for now. Just like with the reset, I want to start simple. But I have a thought that maybe the shockwave can be a separate chunk. This bounce method, ever since the very beginning, has been our longest and ugliest and worst method. So I might want to pull the shockwaves out and just have a separate step that's just like, hey, if you ever change direction, leave a shockwave. And then the bounce can be simpler and just leave the other stuff to other parts of the code. I don't know if that's better. We'll see. But it's an idea. And you want to do as much as you can to keep things simple. Don't add more than you have to. Even take away stuff from what you already have if it's possible. So there you go. 2 tiny things that barely affect the code. If you check the amount of lines, it would be, 4 more than we started, but it does affect the experience quite a bit. We don't have it get stuck anymore, and we don't have it go off screen and then we have to stop. It's faster, better. Why not?